Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. For me, it's so funny when I read an article or a politician or someone, an official, coming out and say, secret document reveals this, or secret negotiations are being conducted, something like this. Well, if they're secret, how in the hell you know them? How did you find out? There's no more secret if you know about it and you tell us about them. The Russians and the United Nations are conducting secret negotiations. Obviously, they are not secret anymore since you know about them and you tell us. When you hear these guys, secret, if they're secret, that means nobody knows. But you know anyway. So nobody, you know what I mean. Here is an article from Ukrainska Pravda. And it says that United Nations conducts secret negotiations with Russia on lifting all major sanctions in exchange for grain deal. So they say they conduct secret negotiations, and you can argue, well, there are secret negotiations because you don't know what they discuss in those negotiations. The content, what they talk about, these discussions are secret. Well, they're not, because these guys are going to tell us what they talked about, supposedly. So there's nothing secret about it anymore. But anyway, it's just funny, for me at least, when I read this or I hear people saying it's secret, it's no more secret if you know about it. Jesus Christ. Anyway, the United Nations is currently conducting secret negotiations with the Russian Federation to reach a deal in which the key sanctions imposed after the beginning of its large-scale invasion of Ukraine will be lifted from Vladimir Putin's terrorist regime in exchange for reviving the Black Sea Grain Initiative. You see, deal in which the key sanctions, no, it's just a few, like 2 or 3, but nevertheless, these guys had about 11 rounds of sanctions, so I think it's hard to get the key. They were all key sanctions, weren't they? So let's see, it says, quote, a secret letter from United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres shows how far the UN is ready to go to restore the grain deal with the warmonger Putin. The newspaper writes, well, if Putin has your food, you will talk to Putin. If Putin doesn't have your food, you don't care, but you'll be starving. So you will talk to this guy. I'm just giving you the warmonger. He's a bad dude, but I need him. What are you going to do? You can be a moral person and say, I'm going to be starving, but you're going to be starving. Or you're going to say, you know what, maybe it's a little bit idiotic here, and I realize that he's not the only warmonger around us. Some of my friends are also warmongers. So if they're my friends and I talk to them and I do whatever they tell me, maybe it's not such a big deal to talk with another warmonger. What do you think? And you know exactly who Al Capone is, right? The letter from Guterres, which Bild calls explosive, proposes 4 specific cornerstones of the agreement between the UN Secretariat and Russian Federation, which would lead to the continuation of the Black Sea Grain Initiative. And who benefits out of that? Ukraine. But these guys gotta get something too. That's how in the negotiations. The Ukrainian says, no, you give us all, we don't give you anything. And the Russia says, you have no power to dictate shit, squat. You are in the courts, and it says, all 4 points are important since their implementation will meet all the requirements of Vladimir Putin's terrorist regime. Not all, what I'm talking about. And reward his missile attacks on Ukrainian civilians' targets, Bild writes. They always end with mustering, grabbing, squeezing your empathy. Well, good policies were never made because of empathy. Why? Because empathy is a subjective feeling, and if you put that in a context, you're not going to be just. Okay? But anyway, Guterres' proposals are as follows. Brace yourselves. A Russian state-owned bank is to be reconnected to SWIFT, of course, so they can make, transfer of money. To circumvent the sanctions, blah, blah, blah. This will allow the Kremlin-controlled company to take on the role of an interface and provide technical service for payment transactions without playing the role of a bank. So it does not need a banking license under Luxembourg law. Simply put, the head of the UN wants to achieve a fake bank, activate a fake bank that will bypass EU sanctions against Russian banks, writes Bild. Russians already, in one article, I read it earlier, but I couldn't find it now. I didn't bother too much, I will just say. They said they will not do that with the bank. They will do it differently. Okay, if they agree. So that's one. The other one is the UN is willing to insure Russian ship against Ukrainian attacks. Ukrainian attacks of civilian businesses, right? Because remember that tanker that was hit by that sea drone by the Ukrainians a while ago? That was not a military target, was it? So within this point, Guterres is seriously proposing to Lavrov that Russian ships should be insured against Ukrainian attacks in the Sea of Azov and the Black Sea. He writes, a UN-funded insurance company for Russian exports of food and fertilizers would be working with Lloyd's within 4 to 6 weeks. Remember, all this is for the Europeans. The Europeans get 38% of the Ukrainian grain, according to United Nations data. 38%. So who wants this? Not Ukraine. And then you got what? 30% going to Turkey and 20% about to China and about between 2 and 3% to the so-called, global south. The ones that they are trying to master our empathy for. But they get 38%. No? All right, my friends. And the third one, frozen funds must be given back to Russia. Well, that's not for you to hold anything that belongs to me. Maybe Ukraine, but not the European Union or anybody else. If I get in a scuffle with you in the neighborhood, my bank should not freeze my account. They're not my judges. I didn't vote for them to be mine. So if other countries, guys here say, we're going to freeze your assets in our banks, well, what does that mean? I'm going to check for you. I'm going to come at your door and I'm going to get my money after I make way, okay, in your house. That's what the Russians could do to certain kind of countries. They didn't make the decision. They're still diplomats. They consider these guys still partners. Those guys want to pull on you a, how do I call it, Gaddafi or a Saddam little thing or Mussolini, and these guys are still working with them. Those guys want to see you like Mussolini was in Piazza di Milano, I think, right? In 1945 with his mistress. That's how they want Putin. Or like Gaddafi. And these guys are calling them partners. We're going to international law and it's illegal to do this. What? Who are you talking to? Come to your senses, my friends. Anyway, under this point, Guterres is sending Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov an offer to help the Putin regime recover assets in the EU that have been frozen by the sanctions. Illegal, I would say, but nevertheless. And the last one, permission for Russian ships to dock in countries such as Germany to be reinstated. The Americans will, what? What are the Americans going to do? They're going to do, well, if someone, we don't know who, blew up the Nord Stream 1, Nord Stream 2, are they going to blow up the same guys who we don't know who they are? German ports, so the Russians can't use them? Because they're not going to hit the Russians, I guarantee you that. But they will, no? So if someone destroyed the Nord Stream 1, Nord Stream 2, and killed the Russia-German gas deliveries, and these guys want to dock at German ports, what is the, how should I put it, conclusion, the logical conclusion? We're going to stop that. Remember how Biden said, we're going to stop that? How are we going to stop it? Destroy the port facilities? That would be one way. It seems like if a bully does it once, the next time it's going to do it bigger if you don't oppose it. And we don't know who blew up the Nord Stream 1, Nord Stream 2, somehow after a year almost. So, all right, the perpetrator was not punished. And we know who he is. We know Al Capone, but anyway, we know Al Capone exists. And remember, che bono, and follow the money. You will get your answer. Thank you very much for being with me again today. The secret, their secret. The United Nations can't do much because United States has United Nations like this, and everything what Guterres says that he will try to achieve is going to be blocked in a second by the United States, and he has no power over European Union, the SWIFT, and anything like that. He can't, and he's going to do something parallel. How? The Germans are under occupation. Do you think they're going to listen to Guterres? How many divisions you have, armored vehicles divisions you have in Germany, Guterres? I tell you, 0. All right. On the other hand, someone else, Al Capone, has some friends over there. And remember, the Germans screw themselves with their politicians big time. Annalena Baerbock, infantile, and then you got Scholz and others. I mean, you can close your eyes and pick them and you get weasels. You don't have to, let me see who's a weasel, who's not a weasel. You just, whatever. Weasel. A weasel. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just. Secret negotiations.